Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder if there is a way to help young people heal from really tough experiences, especially when talking it out isn't always enough? This new study looks at something called trauma-informed weightlifting, and it might offer a different kind of path to feeling better. So, the big idea here is that some young people, especially those who have gone through a lot of difficult, repeated trauma, can have a hard time connecting with their bodies. This is sometimes called a disconnect between the mind and body. Traditional talk therapy is super important, but sometimes it doesn't quite reach those deep feelings that are held in the body. The researchers in this study wanted to see if adding a specific kind of weightlifting program, one that is designed with trauma in mind, could actually help. Think about interoception as your body's internal GPS. It is how you feel things like hunger, your heart beating, or even just a gut feeling. When trauma happens, this internal signal system can get a little messed up. So the question was, could weightlifting, done in a very specific, supportive way, help reconnect young people with their bodies and reduce their trauma symptoms? This wasn't just any gym class trauma. Informed weightlifting, or TIWL, is built on 6 core principles. These include making sure everything feels safe, building trust and being open, encouraging people to support each other, working together, giving people a voice and choices in what they do, and being mindful of different cultural and gender backgrounds. The idea is to create a space where people feel empowered and in control, which can be a big deal for someone who has experienced trauma. Now, how did they test this? They worked with 2 residential programs that care for young people dealing with complex trauma. They ended up with 12 participants. 7 of them got to try out the trauma-informed weightlifting program for 8 weeks, and 5 were in a group that continued with their usual treatment, which often includes therapy and medication. It is important to know this wasn't a random assignment, which means the groups weren't perfectly balanced from the start, but they tried to make sure the people in the weightlifting group were able to participate safely. Every week, and sometimes every month, the participants filled out surveys. They answered questions about their post-traumatic stress symptoms, depression, anxiety, stress, and, importantly, their interoception, that body awareness we talked about. The TIWL group also gave feedback on how they felt about the weightlifting sessions themselves. So, what did they find? Let's start with the big question: was this TIWL thing even possible, and did people like it? The answer seems to be a resounding yes. Participants found the sessions really helpful, even more so than just liking them. They showed up for almost all of the sessions, which is a great sign for feasibility in a tough setting. They generally found the weightlifting enjoyable too. No serious bad events happened, which is always good to hear. So it looks like TIWL is a go in terms of being doable and accepted by these young people. Now, for the effectiveness part, did it actually help with their trauma symptoms? The study found that within the TIWL group, right after the 8 weeks, some trauma symptoms like re-experiencing past events and feelings of being on edge were lower than when they started. That is a big win. Scroll, however, these effects were not maintained at follow-up, nor were they significantly greater than those in treatment, as usual. So scroll but here is where things get a bit more complicated. When they checked in 4 weeks later, those improvements weren't as strong, and they weren't actually better than the group that just had their usual treatment. This is a common challenge with interventions, especially in residential settings where access to the program and equipment stops after it ends. What about that body awareness, the interoception? This is where the results are a bit mixed. While there were some hints that TIWL participants might have improved their interoception, these changes weren't consistent, and they didn't really hold up over time or significantly differ from the comparison group. For depression and stress, it looked like there might have been some slight improvements at the end of the program. But again, these didn't last. And interestingly, anxiety symptoms actually seemed to go up a bit from the start to the follow-up for the TIWL group. So what does this all mean? This study is a pilot, meaning it is one of the first to look at this. It's showing that trauma-informed weightlifting is definitely feasible and acceptable for young people in residential treatment. That is huge. It means we can potentially offer something beyond just talking. The immediate improvements in some trauma symptoms are also really encouraging. However, the lack of lasting effects and the fact that it didn't significantly outperform the usual care group point to areas where we need more research. One big question is why the benefits didn't stick around. Was it because they lost access to the equipment and the coach, or is there something else going on? Also, they couldn't quite pinpoint whether it was the trauma-informed part or just the weightlifting part that made a difference. Future studies could compare TIWL to a regular non-trauma-informed weightlifting group to tease this apart. The small sample size is also a limitation, as it means they might have missed smaller effects or interactions. Plus, the way participants were assigned to groups wasn't random, so there might have been differences between the groups that weren't fully accounted for. Despite these challenges, this research opens a door. It suggests that movement-based interventions done in a supportive and trauma-informed way can be a valuable addition to treatment for young people struggling with complex trauma. The key takeaway is that for individuals who might not connect with traditional talk therapy or who are dealing with that mind, body disconnect, something like TIWL, could be a really important way to help them reconnect with themselves and build resilience. Moving forward, we need to find ways to make these benefits last. This might involve helping participants develop their own practice after the program ends, or finding ways to integrate movement more consistently into their lives. It is exciting to think about how these kinds of innovative approaches can help young people heal. What do you all think about trauma-informed weightlifting? Could you see yourself or someone you know benefiting from something like this? Let me know in the comments below, and if you found this breakdown helpful, please give this video a like and subscribe to RUBIN'S Mind Lab for more explorations into the fascinating world of psychology. We'll see you next time.